QuaranJazz. Listen while you're home. Hello and welcome to the 20th episode of QuaranJazz. Yes, you heard it right. 20 weeks. I'm Geisa Fernandes, singer and songwriter from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, and for the last 20 weeks we've been meeting on a weekly basis to talk about jazz, to talk about jazz musicians who are doing stuff, who are releasing new albums, who are creating during the lockdown. This show had started when the lockdown was still something new for most of us. And during these weeks, we've seen the situation also concerning the pandemic, the lockdown, changing a little bit for some of us. Well, not for me, I'm still confined at home. And as long as I'm confined, this show goes on. You know, I have very conflicting feelings concerning this 20th episode of QuaranJazz. I didn't expect it to last that far when I had the idea. I'm a little bit surprised in a strange way. Surprised that it's taking so long for things to get back to normal, while still doubting that things will get back to normal, in the sense that we will live our lives as if it has never happened at all. The pandemic is part of our stories right now. And this show, QuaranJazz, is also part of this story somehow. So I'm very grateful for having the chance of contacting and talking to so many musicians from different places that I might have never reached otherwise. Thank you very much to all of you that had already been part of QuaranJazz, and I salute the ones to come, the ones who open their hearts and share their stories here with us. This is a show opened for jazz musicians to express how they are coping with the year of 2020. QuaranJazz is also a place for discovering new music. And that's why, for celebrating this 20th episode, I decided to create a playlist on Spotify with the tracks that are part of this podcast, including, of course, bonus tracks from all the participants. So make sure that you check the playlist QuaranJazz on Spotify. The link for QuaranJazz Listen While You're Home, the playlist, will be in the description of this episode, as well as the link to my website, geisafernandes.com. Come on, it's been 20 weeks. It's time for us to get to know each other better. That's why you will also find a link to my mailing list in the description of the episode. You just have to write your name and your best email address, and we are connected. I would also like to remind you that QuaranJazz is a proud participant of the Social Distancing Festival, another great action started during the pandemic. You will find a link to the Social Distancing Festival also in the description of this episode. And last but not least, thank you so much for your company. Thank you, thank you, thank you. What could be a better place to celebrate this 20th episode of QuaranJazz than Paris? Yes, we are going to Paris this week. My guest is French clarinet and saxophone player and composer Olivier Roch. Olivier has a recent release with his band Nocuts, and we're going to talk about it for sure. But first of all, thank you very much for your participation in QuaranJazz, Olivier. And I usually ask my guests to start by describing themselves and the kind of music they do.
Hello, I am a Paris-based jazz musician. I mainly play the soprano clarinet, but I also play the tenor saxophone and the bass clarinet. First, I was classically trained on the clarinet, and then in my early 20s, during a 3-year stay in England, I picked up the saxophone and I merged myself into jazz and started to play in various jazz-oriented bands. And after that, when I came back in Paris in the mid 2000 years, yes, I followed a jazz academic training and started composing for bands. Now my main jazz hero has almost always been John Coltrane, and still is, especially his modal jazz period in the early 60s with his famous jazz quartet. I also have been influenced by the French improvised music scene with artists such as Henri Texier, Michel Portal, or Luis Clavis. Those are also artists that I've listened to a lot. In the last 10 years, I've listened to a lot of so-called crossover jazz artists, from EST to Avishai Cohen, Tigran Amassian. I love most of his music. In France, Anne Passeo, for instance, as well. So I like those what those guys are trying to do, mixing jazz with local influences or personal rock inclinations and so on. As far as Nocuts music is concerned, so I started this quartet 5 years ago when I had the opportunity to rehearse once a week during 2 years at the Triton. Triton, it's a great jazz venue nearby Paris. So that was a great opportunity to basically to work on my compositions and make a band out of them. The band has evolved since the beginning, and the current casting has been in place for a year and a half now. The last musician to join us is Gaël, our pianist. Guillaume and Julien, the double bassist and the drummer, were there a few years before. Now with Nocuts, we mostly play my compositions, and that was the case on only my compositions at the beginning. But now Gaël, since she joined the band, she also has brought her compositions, and we've started playing her compositions, and that's very interesting because they fit in very well with the Nocuts universe. I would say to sum up that our music is jazz that is highly influenced by other genres, such as mainly rock and pop music, but also classical music, world music. That's what I call hybrid jazz, or sometimes it's called crossover jazz. When I was a teenager, for instance, I was a huge Placebo fan. Gaël is a huge Radiohead fan. So Julian has played in a lot of rock bands, from metal bands, pure metal bands, to jazz rock bands. Guillaume on the double bass, when he was younger, I know he was a huge punk rock fan. So I think the four of us, have this rock energy, and that shows in our band's music. And also the four of us, we are open to other traditions, and that's what also characterizes Nocuts, is the openness to other traditions, other culture that we try to infuse in our music. The idea behind the compositions is to invite the audience to a true musical journey. I know that sounds pretty common, but what I mean is that, for instance, we like to change atmospheres during the same compositions, to change metrics, to change tempos, to use the whole range of nuances and sounds that our instruments offer. We try to alternate calm and chaos, to alternate. It could be meditative sections, or on the contrary, it could be improvisational climax or rhythmic trance. That is, I think, why a lot of people, when they listen to Nocuts, they tell us that they can imagine stories, or they can figure out images that the music inspires for them. Our first album that we're going to listen is Itinéraire, and it came out in January 2020. And the idea for this album is to suggest one different journey per each track. All those journeys have been inspired by personal experiences. It could be, for instance, for the track Pulsation, it was the emotion triggered by moving to a new place. It could be when you're in a situation at the crossroads in a relationship. For instance, that's for the track called Unknown. So you see, in my compositions, I try to transform the intensity of an emotion that's at the very beginning of a composition. I try to transform that into a musical trip that opens new horizons. That's the idea behind our Itinéraire album.
I see. You live in a city that's world-known and well-known for being a city for lovers, for artists. So how is it living in Paris as a jazz musician?
I am based in eastern Paris, which is a great place to live in for jazz, because that's where most of the Parisian musicians live, and also that's where you've got the most venues to play at. Nowadays, and that's been the case for a few years, Nocuts, is my main project.
All right, great. Yeah, tell us about your projects, please.
We are currently playing our Itinéraire album live, and we're also testing new compositions, including some of Gaël, our pianist. And I hope that if we carry on testing new compositions as we've been doing in the last few months, I hope maybe those could be part of a future second album. But yeah, that's where we are at with Nocuts at the moment. At the moment, we're also working on a duet version of Nocuts with Gaël, as we have been invited to play at a painter and sculptures exhibition. That's what we've been asked to try to do, and that's very interesting to arrange those quartet tunes for the piano and the clarinet. And also playing in a duet like that is a new challenge, and that's always everything that's different and that has new challenges. It can be fun, and that's what I feel. Apart from Nocuts' different settings, I play in a swing quartet that's called Four Swing. The repertoire is based on swing standards, bossa nova, and klezmer tunes, and we also like to revisit pop hits with a swinging approach. For instance, Stevie Wonder or Michael Jackson, like great songs. We've turned them into swing, and that's always good fun to play with Four Swing. I also play from time to time in like one shot collaborations, but that's very one shot things. Now the last thing that I've been working on is a solo set based on improvisations or a few solo compositions for clarinet or bass clarinet only. And in that project, I'm working on my use of effects and loops with the clarinet. That's it. That's the main projects I'm involved in.
And for you personally, how was this quarantine time? Could you work on new stuff, or did you take time for yourself to rest? How was it?
For Nocuts, like for everyone else in the jazz scene, COVID meant that we had some gigs postponed. Of course, we had to stop rehearsing and seeing each other. So we still kept in touch through WhatsApp. Just that for 2 months. Personally, I enjoyed the first 4 to 5 weeks of the confinement. I mean, it was great to have a lot of time to practice my instruments. I especially dedicated this time to the bass clarinet, which is an instrument with which I am less familiar. And it was great to have a lot of time to compose music. So I felt very productive the first 4 to 5 weeks. But after that, the motivation is not the same. I mean, with the lack of live concerts, the lack of rehearsals, I kind of slowed down. And I still listen to a lot of music, but yeah, I mean, it was not the same. So now we have some gigs rebooked for September. But there are still a lot of uncertainties for those gigs due to the capacity restrictions in France for music venues. We don't know. A few weeks ago, the restriction was only 50% of the capacity. Now it's a bit more, but still not full capacity. So for jazz clubs, especially the small ones, but most of them are not very big, there is a lot of uncertainty. As for myself, not with Nocuts, I've noticed that I've been asked to play in a few occasions in smaller settings, duets. I mentioned earlier also my solo set that I'm working on. And for instance, as well, for the Fête de la Musique, which is a music festival in the streets of the cities in all France. Every 21st of June each year we have this music festival. And this year, for instance, I played a one-shot gig in a trio with accordion and drums. That was funny experience, and we played Eastern European music and jazz. So yeah, and I think there will be more and more similar occasions to that, because it's playing outside, playing in gardens, playing in the streets, and that's less complicated for obvious reasons during COVID, this weird time.
And what about the song you've selected for us today?
The song we are going to hear is a song called Aventure. I wrote it in 2014, I think. This was a time when I had not composed in quite a long time. So there was some excitation about writing at the time. And I hope that the song communicates sort of joy that you can experience when you explore, when you discover a new place, a new territory. the song starts with a short improvised introduction, which is mainly led by the double bass. After that, there is a very written theme that's being played by the four instruments in a rather innocent, playful tone. And after the theme, there is a section that's totally improvised, and in a different mood. The pulse disappears, and it opens a new atmosphere. The rest is a surprise. I hope you enjoy the tune.
Thank you very much for your participation, Olivier. All the best for you and your projects with Nocuts. Oh, and we'll be looking forward to the second album. And please send my greetings as well to Paris, a city that I love with all my heart, that has always treated me very well, but I have great friends, very, very good friends. And thank you, dear listener, for staying with us in the 20th episode of QuaranJazz. Hooray! I'm Geisa Fernandes from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And you can drop me a line and get to know me more by visiting my website, geisafernandes.com. You can also find me on Facebook. The Touring Jazz Musician is the name of the group that I've created and manage. Join the discussion and find out more about jazz festivals that accept submissions directly from artists. If this is your case, if you are an unmanaged artist, I think you should definitely check it out. But if you prefer good old-fashioned effective one-to-one email communication, join my mailing list. You just have to click on the link in the description of this episode, then write your name, your best email address, and voila, we are connected. Well, time to say till next week. Don't forget to check our playlist on Spotify. And now, ladies and gents, aventure. QuaranJazz. Listen while you're home. QuaranJazz, a podcast by Geisa Fernandes.